All right, so now I want to talk about Gloom and how it ranks, how difficult it is, right? Getting a lot of DMs about requirements, cap requirements, damage requirements, HP requirements, and I would say that it feels like right now, our team is obviously stacked, but we cleared in 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Right, this is our will team clearing 6:30, and this reminds me of Damian versus Lucid, right? First day clear extremely easy. DPS is never an issue. It's kind of just figuring out the mechanics, and a lot of room for error. And if you are like, and there's people that have cleared without clearing will, right? So that's kind of gives you an idea of how much easier Lucid or Gloom is. So I would say that if you can clear Damian, you have about maybe about 250k HP, maybe a little less. But if your hard Damian team can clear in, let's say, 5 minutes, 6 minutes, or if you have an average maybe of 40 to 50 mil cap with maybe a few 60s in there, I think it's doable to do Gloom. Now, individual skill is huge, right? Because like I said in the patch notes, if you die during the petrify phase, it just makes it so much harder, and it kind of snowballs, the death snowball. So you're going to need more phantoms, you're going to need more paladins to support with the heals, better coordination, better, kiting and things like that. But I truly believe like we're trying to get, like I think Enosis, their whole guild cleared. Like they had like 3 or 4 or 5 teams clearing, right? And I'm sure it was all very, I saw some teams clear with 0 lives left. That will get better, and that'll get, as teams get more comfortable. But I would say that, it's possible to do with probably an average of high 40s, low 50s mil cap, obviously with great players, with players that know what they're doing. More cap, easier it's going to be, but DPS won't be an issue. Like I think it's just getting through like each cycle, petrify cycle. Like the longer the fight goes on, the more room for error, the more deaths are going to happen, right? So I truly believe, and when it comes to ranking Gloom, right, the way I rank it is based on how it was for the first clear. Because like if I'm ranking Damian right now versus what Gloom is right now, Damian's been out for 2 years, right, and they've rebalanced it consistently, and it just feels like it's people have got so much experience with it now. It's kind of mindless. There's solo content and stuff like that, so can't really compare that. It doesn't really make sense. Like, but when it comes to when it first came out to the first actual clear, here I would put Gloom. I would put so if I was to rank Lotus, Lucid, Gloom, Will, and Damian, right? I think the easiest one was Lucid, because that was at the time. People already had 7-set Absols. People already had their Absol weapons, from Damian. So there was a tier like that. It's pretty easy, right? And still to this day, people are clearing Lucid before they're clearing hard Damian, right? It's just a DPS check, and there's not much DPS to it. It's pretty stationary, not much mechanics going on. If you have one person that knows how to do the cleansing, easy peasy, right? And when it first came out, we just stood on the statue and cleansed constantly and had no issues. We cleared like 5-6 minutes left in the fight. We didn't even know what we're doing. We just tunneled and got the clear. I would say Gloom was the second easiest of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gloom was the second easiest, even above Lotus. And again, we cleared in 6:30, right? And I think people forget that Lotus was extremely challenging. It was a sweaty run because we didn't have Absolabs back in the day, right? Our cap at the time was, equivalent to the boss. The DPS didn't catch up to the HP, right, at the time. And so phase 1 was, I would argue that phase 1, the death to time ratio is like in that phase, for any phase in any boss, is the highest. Like people are still dying in 1 minute of Lotus lasers now to this day, right? And so back then it was like 3-4 minutes to clear. Like every minute after that, there was like a internal clock, because every minute after that it was exponentially harder to clear. So Lotus phase 1 is still arguably one of the hardest phases to clear now, but definitely at the time of first clear. So don't sleep on how hard Lotus was. And it was a DPS check later, phase 2, phase 3, yes. But Purple Orb phase, the immunity phrases, if you got some of those, multiple of those, yeah, it got real sweaty. It was always a 10-minute fight, close to 10-minute fight for that first clear. Gloom, Gloom is 6:30, right? Teams are clearing 8 minutes, 7 minutes. It's the DPS is not an issue. It's just figuring out the mechanics. First timers, it's going to get much easier, much quicker, right? So how I would rank it right now is Lucid, Gloom, Lotus, right? Lotus was hard. Don't get me wrong, Lotus was hard, but once you got through phase 1, it was DPS check. It's pretty straightforward. Dodging was much easier, and so yeah, I'd say Lotus lasers. I don't take that for granted at all, but yeah, it was definitely challenging at the time. There was no DPS. It was sweaty. You needed the big guns, and you needed a lot of reps. Like phase 1, needed a lot of reps. You had to use like Hero's Will of Urda. You had to learn how to, God forbid, jump and use ladders and while attacking. That was uncharted territory and still challenging to this day for a lot of players. Amazing. Then I would say Will second hardest. Will 15-minute fight. It's a grind, right? And there was the test, but I think the hardest part was for us was that first burst window. You still needed DPS. It's still a DPS check, which makes it very challenging, but mechanics wise, it's not very hard in my opinion, right? Like as long as you have the DPS, you'll clear Will. You just have to get through that first window, do all the tests correctly, just dodge and survive. And it's totally fine. I think what really separates Will from the rest of the fights is a 15-minute fight. So that was so taxing at the start when you get all the way to the end and you don't make it DPS wise, or you fail in phase 3. Man, was it a grind to reset and refocus and lock in. I do not want to take Will for granted. We grinded for hours, 3-hour session after 3-hour session. First time I've ever done that because we were trying to get it done in the first week. But yeah, it was just like, I think the grind was harder. Just like getting used to that was the most challenging part, and we knew we could do it in that first week. But Damian is still the hardest boss. Hard Damian, hands down. When we first cleared, I think people forget how different it is now, right? Fair trade. We didn't use fair trade, right? You couldn't stand on the altars during fair trade. HP, we only had Lotus, a few Absols, 4 set Absols, and HP was a big issue, right? People were re-rolling HP potentials to just survive orbs for those people that are on the cleansing the black altars. It took a lot. I mean, I just think about how like the AI generated stuff for the skill rotation was needed to know what skill, when dashes were coming, when to blink up, when altars were coming 7 seconds before. People had to prep a lot of things. People actually had to know the rotations. I was calling it out every single skill, when it was coming, things like that, doing a lot more call outs. We haven't had that since or before that. It's just, Damian is, I don't want people to forget how hard Damian was when it first came out. There was no normal mode. There was no solo mode. It was just all either you're going to clear or you're going to clear hard mode. And at the time, it was a grind. Like something as simple as moving the orbs and seeing your name and when you have orbs to the left side was so hard. It was the hardest thing, and people just didn't know how to survive. And so I still think that hard Damian by far, it just took so much like team coordination, right? It wasn't just pure brute force DPS. You needed a team. You needed people to sacrifice DPS. It was better if you had one person as aggro, a one big DPS to hold aggro, and everyone else just kind of follow in and follow the roles. There was just a lot of layers to it, and rightfully so, right? I think people think every boss has to be harder, and I think I just try to remind myself that Damian is what allowed us to get the Absolab weapon, which allowed us to get 7 set Absolab for all those set bonuses, right? Will gives a pocket and a skill, right? That's pretty cool. But the pocket is the main reward, and then Gloom gives a ring. Those are nothing in comparison to a weapon and finishing a 7-set Absol, which now gives ignore enemy defense, or I gotta say it right, defense ignore rate, DIR, defense ignore rate. So yeah, Damian's still the king, then followed by Will, because that was just a grind, and then Lotus, sneaky, Gloom, Lucid. So I think it's totally possible that Gloom is like I'm okay giving up my spot in Gloom to help someone else get their ring and their party XP medal, right? Because there's no like the daily grind. Yeah, it's stigma crystals here and there, but it's not like, for one, the team doesn't need my DPS, right? They can clear without it, and two, it's just first clear, guarantee 100%, no RNG is wild. Why did they do that? I have no idea, right? I'll get back. I'll take a break and I'll talk about what my thought process and why they did this and the pros and cons. And if you guys made it all the way to the end of the video, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join the Discord community. The Echo Clan community is growing, the best community in the game right now. And if you want to take your gameplay to the next level, improve your gameplay, do more damage, do more DPS, you definitely want to subscribe. The first 7 days are free and you're going to get full access to everything in the channel. So you definitely want to check that out. Thank you guys so much. I'll see you guys next time.